So the first actual code you're going to write is emptySpaceExists, and I'm assuming in this video you've already read this stuff, okay? Now, I just want to give you a little flavor for what this actually feels like in IntelliJ to work on, okay? So what I need to do is complete this function emptySpaceExists in the model class. I'm trying to fill in this code. And right now it's wrong. It always just says false, no matter what the board is. So in order to verify that it's wrong, I'm going to go to test empty space, and I'm going to run all the tests. And as you saw in the spec, oops, I meant to run all of the tests. If I run all of the tests, I pass 2, and I fail 6 of them. Okay. Now let's look at one of those tests. Let's see why it's failing. So we go to test empty bottom row. This is a test which has an empty bottom row, and our code's apparently wrong. Okay, it's supposed to say, yes, there's an empty space, here they are, but our code's saying no. And so why is that? Well, it's because when this test runs, it passes this board to our function, and our function just says false. But that's not the right answer, right? I mean, if you look at the board that we're talking about, it has a bunch of empty spaces in the bottom row. So we need to take into account the actual state of the board. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, as we said earlier, you should look at the different classes. So board, it has some instance variables, it has some functions and so forth. And again, a lot of this is just syntax that you've never seen at all before, but that's okay. That's part of the learning experience. But what I will note is like it may be tempting to just try and directly use values, which is some kind of variable in board. So if you were to attempt that, like let's just try and print out the bottom left tile. So if I do that, b values 0, 0, okay, so that's using some array syntax that we haven't really discussed yet. But it'll yell at us and it'll say, sorry, you can't do that. Values is not something you're allowed to access. And that's because it's using a keyword we've not discussed in lecture yet, which will not allow you to use values. Instead, you are forced to use, as described in the spec, tile. Okay? So if I go into model, what I actually want to do, if I want to print out that top or that bottom left tile, I will say b.tile 0, 0. It's a function that takes a column and a row. And keep in mind, this is the order. This is the column and the row. So this will be the bottom left tile. And now if I run test empty bottom again, we will see that, well, it still fails, of course. We didn't change anything about the return value, but we're getting this null print first. And what this null here is, this is that bottom left element right here, right? So we've gotten that null. That's as much as I'm going to tell you. The rest is for you to figure out. But basically, that's an example of how I can get the 0, 0th tile. So the logic is up to you, and yeah, good luck. And once you've done that, once you've gotten this function working correctly, when you run this entire test empty space test class, you should see that all of these are green check marks, and you should have a sense of accomplishment. You did it.